Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm very excited to have on Pete Valiotis for the show today. He is the big winner of the TFC, the Fantasy Championship on our site. He won this year $500,000. It just happened last week, so we want to bring Pete on, talk about his big winnings, and get the lowdown on how he built his roster and the draft and how the season went and his big plans for all his winnings here. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Pete Valiotis. And thanks so much for coming on, Pete. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries, Jeff. Good seeing you.
Good to see you too. So first question, you won $500,000 playing fantasy football. Has it really sunk in yet?
No, not really, to be honest. I don't think you ever think you're going to win this tournament. I've entered it for a few years in a row now. There's a couple of years where I've gotten close, but it's a really, really tough tournament to win. There's a lot of luck involved, in winning it, and you just have to have a team that goes on kind of a 3-week heater, for lack of a better term. It's not really the best team that wins it; it's a team that gets hot at the right time. So I don't think it's really sunk in yet, to be honest with you. It's kind of crazy to me, to be honest. So.
One of my questions actually was going to be, because I know you've entered before, was what was your best finish before this?
Well, it's interesting. I had my best finish was 10th, and that was a couple years ago, the year that Brad won it. So the team was sitting in 10th, and I had Mixon and the Buffalo D going in the on the last night. Probably would have got into the top 5. However, we had the DeMar Hamlin incident, so that was my best finish. However, I think the closest I got, and I had a partner at the time, Greg, it was the Alvin Kamara 6-touchdown Christmas Day game, and that put us in the third place for a bit. And we thought we had a really good shot at it, but then we also had Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and AJ Brown in a snowy Sunday night game that didn't really do much, so that kind of killed the chances of that team. But so. Again, there's definitely a little luck involved in this.
That's definitely impressive, though. Still finished 10th in previous years as well. So that's good work there. So $500,000. We've already paid out our winners. So you have this. Do you have any plans for the winnings here? Do you have any big, big ideas with the money for this year?
I really haven't come up with any plans for it yet. Given that I just turned 50 this year, I should be having some midlife crisis and let's say go out and buy a sports car or something like that. I really don't have any plans for the winnings right now. Again, it's just so new. I think the money went into my account on Friday. It's kind of shocking, to see it there. Something winning that money playing fantasy football. But I have 2 kids in college, so believe me, they're gonna. Probably college tuition will take a good chunk of that change, but
there you go. So
we'll come up with something. Travel somewhere, like buy a boat, something like that.
There you go. Awesome. Love it. So let's talk about the draft. So draft took place. When did it take place for you? You did a slow draft. What month was that in again?
Yeah, it was in May.
May. Okay.
And over the last couple of years, I've kind of transitioned more to slow drafts because not for any particular reason other than it fits into my lifestyle. Things have been busy for the past couple of years, a lot of traveling. There's a lot of traveling with the kids, a lot of traveling for work. So a slow draft affords you that opportunity to kind of do it at your own pace. That being said, even when I'm in slow drafts, I tend to take about 30 seconds to pick if I'm available to pick. So I'm not one of those people in slow drafts that tends to run the clock. So I did a lot of slow drafts this year.
Okay, so drafted in May. I'm going to pull it up here. You actually had the 8th pick. I say this all the time, and the numbers back it up. You can pick from anywhere and win. So you picked from the 8th. Some people don't like picking near the middle rounds, but obviously it worked for you. You had St. Brown as your first pick, then Taylor, Mixon, Evans, Lamar Jackson, Najee Harris, George Kittle, DeAndre Hopkins, Spears, Thomas Palmer. So when I look at kind of your core, it's really solid, but there's no gotcha pick in it, in my opinion, except for Thomas. That was obviously great value in round 10, but I just think you did a nice job of stacking your roster here. And, I think that first pick probably was one of your toughest ones, and it worked out well for you with St. Brown. Were you having any debate there with that first pick at the 8th spot?
Well, it's interesting. Not really. The 8th pick is my least favorite pick. It was my least favorite pick this year. It's my least favorite pick in the past. And particularly this year, the reason why it's my least favorite pick is the top 7 that you see there I would have drafted any of those guys with that 8th pick. St. Brown was kind of the pick, the guy that I had at 8th, but I did see a little bit of a drop off. The reason why it's my least favorite pick, or the 8th pick, is like, I feel like if you're on the turn, if you're 11 and 12, you can get 2 kind of elite players. But if you're picking 5th and 2nd round, and you were kind of making a decision between guys like Etienne or Jacobs, Marvin Harrison, if you want to go to the wide receiver route, because most of the elite wide receivers are gone at that point. I feel like I got lucky in this draft by Taylor being there. And even though Taylor had kind of an up and down year during playoff time in a 3-week tournament, he was fantastic, at least the past 2 weeks. So I was happy to get Taylor there. But you're right. If you look at this team, there's not really anything that stands out with it, except for Thomas in the 10th round. That was I was looking at the numbers from the overall tournament, and Thomas in the 3-week overall had 84.6 points. So getting that at a 10th round pick when you're averaging, 28, 29 points over a 3-week period is pretty, with 10th round pick is pretty good, and my other wide receivers too. Evans had 78 points over the 3-week period. St. Brown had 77. So my wide receivers kind of really carried me here a little bit during the 3-week period.
So Lamar Jackson ended up being the QB1 for fantasy this year. You took him in the 5th round. Is this a strategy you normally take? You like to get one of these elite quarterbacks first? It's one I don't employ a lot, but I feel like this year it made a huge difference. I haven't done the numbers yet, but I'm going to at some point. But I feel like the teams that got the elite quarterbacks really had good fantasy season. I think having Jackson under us was really a difference maker. But is that normally a route that you like to employ? You like to get one of these elite guys?
No, it's actually not. I think it depends on the way the draft comes to you. And this year, I tend to get a lot of Lamar because he was falling into the late 5th, early 6th round. And then if you're making a decision between, let's say, there's a couple drafts. I was making decisions between Lamar Jackson and Calvin Ridley, in like the 6th round. If you have a choice to draft Lamar or a guy that couldn't, and I'm not disparaging Calvin Ridley at all, but I'd much rather have Lamar at that pick. And I have more confidence in my ability to find a wide receiver later that's going to produce, having Lamar on the team, having a guy like Lamar on the team is really helpful. Like, again, I was just kind of writing down numbers over the course of the 3-week playoff. Lamar had 99 points, so that's, you get one of those guys and, you can just rely upon him. You can keep him in your lineup and not think about it. So at 5'8", I was very happy with Lamar.
Yeah. So let's look at this roster you had at the end of the season. Now it's actually very similar to what you drafted, but I got to ask about any pickups. Was there any guy that you picked up throughout the season that made a difference in your opinion? Maybe you had to use them for a week and got a bunch of points, something along those lines. There's any big pickups for you this year?
It's interesting. Like, I've had so many teams where if you were asking that question about a different team, there would be guys that would have made a difference. Looking at this team, there's nobody that really stands out as far as a pickup goes. That I picked up late in the year and used. A lot of this roster is similar to the roster I originally drafted. So with this team, no. The interesting thing about this team too is I think over the course of the 3-week period, I made one lineup change, and that was to put Tajay Spears in for weeks 2 and 3 of the overall. Rather than, I think I played Hopkins in week 1 because Najee Harris didn't have a really good playoff schedule. So I didn't play him at all during that period, which is a good thing because he didn't produce. But this team is not particularly deep. It's good that my guy stayed healthy. There wasn't many lineup decisions because there wasn't that many good options on the bench. So it wasn't a deep team. I had teams that I struggled to kind of figure out how to put in that, who to put in the lineup, and this wasn't one of them. So
sometimes that helps though when you don't have those tough decisions. When you definitely, when you have 2 QBs, you want to go that platoon route, and it's tough picking the right one each week.
It definitely helps.
Yeah.
Like the last week I had this, with Tony Pollard coming, maybe coming back. I was, I was like, well, should I consider Madison or even Wan'Dale Robinson if Malik Neighbors isn't playing? And I'm kind of glad that Pollard was ruled out. I just went with Spears, even though he got hurt in the middle of the 3rd quarter. Because I didn't want to have to be in that situation where a lineup decision you make if you get it wrong, could cost you $500,000. That would have drove me crazy.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I got to ask too, though. I know the playoffs, your team got red hot and you were unbelievable. But was there a point during the regular season that you thought, "Hey, this team's really good. I got a chance to make a run"? You did. You led your league in scoring, so
Yeah.
obviously you had some big games throughout the year. But was there a point during the season you thought, "Hey, I really got a shot with this one"?
Yeah. There was, there was a point kind of midway through the season where I thought that this particular team was very good. Now, a couple of weeks after that point, it got a little bit, it wasn't hot anymore. And you're looking at it and I'm like, I don't necessarily love this roster anymore. And I think that was the point where Mike Evans was out with injuries. But I mean, to be frank, Jeff, I mean, there was teams that I went in, I think I had 19 total teams. I got 11 into the overall. And this was probably about my fourth, fifth favorite team, going into the overall. It wasn't a team that you look at and go, wow, that's a great team. So,
Yeah.
You look at, what I think like a real impressive achievement is the teams that are number 1 and 2 throughout the course of a season.
Yeah.
That in many ways is even more of an impressive achievement than, winning the 3-week scramble at the end. But yeah, I like this team. I can't say that I loved it going into the playoffs. Yeah.
So it really did come down to the wire. I'm going to bring up the championship playoffs
Right.
here. You ended up winning by 11 points, but it was really close. Came down to the Monday night game. Basically, you had St. Brown and Kittle. The team in second place had St. Brown and Laporta. And then there's a team with Jahmyr Gibbs that actually jumped out with his quick start on that Monday night game and was in the lead for a while as well. But man, it had to be tough watching that. How did you watch the game? That's what I want to know. First of all, did you have a bunch of people, family, friends over? Did they know what was happening? How did you watch the game?
Well, I had a lot of friends that knew it was that was happening. Some of which were at bars watching the Lion game. So we live in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And they were getting asked why they were rooting for Kittle, watching the Lions game at the bar. And they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't understand. The Lions game didn't mean anything." So my friends were rooting for me, which resulted in them cheering Kittle catches in the Monday night game in a bar full of Lions fans. So I appreciate them for that. But it's tough to watch. It really is. I remember Brad gave an interview a couple of years ago after he won it, where he said that, or I believe he said that he didn't watch any of it. He, he just kind of let it happen when he knew he had a shot. He wasn't, watching every play of every game. And I kind of wish I did that in retrospect. Sunday was harder for me because after the 1:00 games, I was playing defense in the 4:00 games, and Steven, who finished second, he was kind of Vikings heavy. He had Aaron Jones and Will Riker, the Vikings D. And I believe the third place team had Hawkinson. So I was watching that game, and it's just tough watching it when you have nobody going and you have kind of people chasing you down, and there's nothing good that can happen for you. You're just rooting for to minimize the damage going into the Monday night game. So the Monday night game, believe it or not, was stressful, but a little bit easier to watch. So
okay. And you ended up kind of pulling away a little bit there towards the end in the fourth quarter. It really wasn't decided until, the final clock ran out there, but still you kind of pulled away at the end. So that kind of had to help a little bit. Your stress level.
There was a St. Brown touchdown that kind of separated. Well, actually Steven had St. Brown too. So that kind of separated us a little bit from the third place team. But until the very end, I was concerned about, even though Kittle had a good game, and between Steven and I, essentially we went into the Monday night game. I had Kittle, he had Laporta, and I had a 10.5 spread over him. So, but I was still worried late in that game about like a Laporta 40-yard touchdown. So you're always thinking about the worst case.
Yeah. Right? They don't take the gas, that they don't let up at all the lines either. So you never know what he's going to do there with his play calling.
Yeah, no, that is certainly the case.
So one question I got to ask before I let you go is just any advice. You won right now. You're just the big winner, TFC Championship, but you finished 10th in the past. Do you have any advice for any of our people out there when it comes to this contest, when it comes to, I don't know, anything, drafting, roster management, anything along those lines? Do you have any advice you want to give to our viewers out there?
Sure. I think my advice would be kind of like twofold, or mostly advice to people that are new at it. I think, I started doing this kind of in volume. I was what I consider a pretty good recreational player kind of around the COVID year. I'm probably now a slightly better recreational player. But what I
Okay.
did is I kind of like hopped into a lot of drafts with a lot of good players in the site, guys like Brad and Ralph and Fozzie and all those guys. And you kind of,
Mhm.
and you got to learn and you learn a little bit from them, watch what other people do. Obviously your style is your own style. I tend to be a running back heavy guy.
Mhm.
I've evolved a little bit from that, but I still got to I have more confidence in my ability to find wide receivers late than running backs late. So I'm kind of an against the current, the recent trend
Yeah.
type person. So I think you got to draft the way, you know, draft to what your style is, but also at the same time, kind of learn from the better players around you. And this tournament this year, I think it's funny, not with this team as much, which is funny, but I felt like I was looking ahead a lot more to those, championship weeks,
Mhm.
particularly with respect to lining up defenses. Maybe I had three defenses in a roster that I kind of looked ahead in the schedule
Mhm.
and, try to find the right matchups. Uh, I would say draft impact players. You asked me about Lamar earlier. The reason why I picked Lamar at 5'8" is I believe he was the biggest impact player uh, at that particular spot and helped, so I don't have any like tremendously sage advice on it. I don't think I'm a better player today than I was a couple weeks ago, despite this win. But that would generally be my advice. Look at good players, look at what they do, look at how they draft, be yourself in the way you draft. But at the same time, uh, you could definitely learn some things by watching good players draft, which I've
Love
done.
it.
Yeah.
I love it, Pete. I really appreciate you coming on, talking about the TFC this year and your big win. Really, really a lot of fun talking with you. And I big congrats once again. Got to give you a big props for your win. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you. Okay.
All right. All right. That was Pete Valiotis. He is our big TFC winner of this year, won $500,000. Get in the contest next year if you want a chance to come on here and talk with me after you win your big prize like Pete did. So, once again, thanks so much, Pete, for coming on. And thanks to you for watching. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.